is 30 local leaders, both past and present. A lot of them are still living. It teaches kindergartners through second grade how to write the leaders' names and has a short bio and a picture that they can color. And that is sponsored by the Community Foundation. We're part of, obviously, the Kansas Immigration Coalition, being able to work and ensure safety and access to rights and empowerment information across the state. We also work with a lot of other groups and collaborations to have the first Civil Rights Memorial in Hutchinson at Chester I. Lewis Plaza, and we host a lot of events for Juneteenth and Bridge Builders Barbecue with HPD. We have an annual soccer games. I could go on. It's a little bit of everything, because anything that is related to social justice, we are a part of. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esmeralda. We'll let you be on your way if you need to be.
Thank you. And you can send any questions too. I'm happy to answer them.
We know that you
pretty
are always
all-encompassing.
on call. Thank you so much. Let's give her a big round of applause, please. Photo op.
Thank you so much. Be careful.
Thank you. All right, Sarah, we're on.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
You guys are about to learn today. You guys ready to learn some stuff today? All right. Yes. Okay. You want me to like turn this thing off or something?
It's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, that was better. Okay. Okay, so thank you guys for having me today, and thank you for staying. I know you guys probably have a busy Sunday. Football is already on. So I'm here to talk to you guys about immigration law. If you guys have questions, interrupt me. I usually do talks about immigration all over Kansas at this point. Before I wanted to become an attorney, I actually wanted to be a teacher and a coach. Oh, Marcus is gone. I played against his daughter in basketball. I went to Bishop Carroll, and Marcus's daughter went to Northwest, so we were enemies for a while. So I wanted to be a teacher and a coach, and now I get to do all three. I'm an attorney, I teach at Washburn Law, and then I'm also a coach here and there. I coached League 42 for a while, if you guys know what League 42 is. 9 and 10-year-old boys are very fun to coach. So I'm just gonna get started on my usual spiel about immigration, but if you guys have questions, interrupt me, stop me, okay?
Yeah, if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll bring
Yeah.
a microphone to you.
Okay.
Sorry to cut in front of you here, Sarah. Go ahead.
So as I said during my speech up there, immigration laws were actually created to exclude people from the United States. When immigration laws started to be created way back before any of us were born, it was because there were so many people coming to the United States that the US government was like, whoa, we need to slow down. We don't know if we like these people or not. We don't know if we want these type of people coming to the United States. There was a lot of immigration laws created to exclude Chinese people, for instance. So I think that's kind of a good place to start when you're thinking about immigration and how obviously we want people to come to the United States, but unfortunately, it's not very easy for a lot of people. There are multiple different types of immigration law. The type of immigration law that I practice is removal defense and humanitarian-based immigration. My cousin, Angie, she is also an immigration attorney. We both have our own office here in Wichita, and she does family-based immigration. So family-based immigration is, spouses applying for each other, fiance visas. If you guys have ever seen 90 Day Fiance on TLC, that's what we do. And we, siblings applying for each other, parents applying for kids, kids applying for parents, that kind of thing. As far as removal defense, I work with people who are detained by ICE, people who are not detained but are in removal proceedings in front of an immigration judge. The closest immigration court to us is Kansas City, so we actually do not have an immigration court in Wichita. The only immigration offices we have in Wichita are USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. That's on Douglas. It's across from Milk Float, if anybody has ever been down in Delano. USCIS is where I frequent, and that is kind of like the benefits portion of the show. When people want to get a green card or when people want to become a US citizen, that's the place where they go, and that's usually the happy place. And then we have ICE here in Wichita. They are on Woodlawn and Central. You would never even know that it's an ICE facility, but they do all of the check-ins if people have to check in with ICE. If someone is detained by ICE here in Wichita, they're taken to that facility, and there are jail cells in there, but they don't actually stay in Wichita. They get transferred to ICE detention facilities in Kay County or Chase County. So Sedgwick County actually does not house any ICE detainees or anything like that. They go to the ICE facility on Woodlawn, and then they're sent to another location. So I work with people who are detained, non-detained, and then I also work with victims of crime, victims of abuse. That's the humanitarian based immigration that I do. I also work with DACA holders, TPS holders, temporary protected status, basically anything under the sun. My cousin and I, we call ourselves different types of surgeons. So I am the trauma surgeon. If anybody watches Grey's Anatomy, Chief Hunt or whoever, Dr. Hunt, he is the trauma surgeon. That's me. I am everywhere. I am putting out fires. I am, taking care of everything and everybody all at the same time. I'm a trauma surgeon. My cousin is an elective surgeon. Oh, you want to apply for your mom? Great, let's go, let's do it. And, and I'm like, so anyways, yeah, that's our lives. The only thing we don't do is employment-based immigration. And so that's when employers want to apply for employees, whether those employees are outside the United States or inside the United States. We don't do that type of immigration law. It is a whole nother ballgame, but there are a lot of attorneys here in Wichita who do that type of immigration law. So again, if you guys have any questions, just
I've got
hit
one.
me up. Yeah.
So when we've been to some workshops and some seminars on rapid response and what to do if ICE comes and so forth. And we perceive, I think most of the people in these workshops say, ICE is our enemy. They're our adversaries. But you told me, Sarah, you actually meet with ICE people. Tell us about that. What goes on there, and
Yeah.
are you loving your enemy, or what is going on here?
So it's a very fragile relationship. So I actually have a very good relationship with ICE here in Wichita, because I am the type of attorney who I think communication is very important. So the more that I can communicate with ICE, the better, but it's always in the benefit of my client. Obviously, I'm not going to try to suck up to ICE and then my clients are harmed because of it, but there's a balance and there's a line. ICE is something that they appreciate here in Wichita is communication. So if someone moves and they don't tell ICE, ICE kind of gets frustrated, right? So there's a line, there's a lot of reasonableness that needs to happen. It's kind of like the police, there's always good officers and then there's always bad officers. I think we live in a very good city where the ICE officers are very understanding, they're very reasonable, but at the end of the day, they have to do their job and I have to do mine. One of the realities of immigration is enforcement. ICE was created to enforce the immigration laws, and that's fine. That's their job. And they have priorities, every president that comes through, whether it be Republican or Democrat, they're assigned different priorities. So people who have been checking in with ICE for years and never got detained, they're getting detained now because the priorities have changed. So my approach to ICE is my clients need to be prepared for anything, because at the end of the day, detention is most likely inevitable and removal is inevitable at some points. It just, every case is different. So rather than telling my clients, hey, don't go to your check-in because you're probably going to get detained, I say, hey, you have to go to your check-in because it's required under federal law, but you need to be prepared and your family needs to be prepared in case you are detained. There's some things that I just can't control, but I'm not going to ever tell my client to evade the law, because guess what? They're going to probably come to that person's house and cause a scene and detain them in front of their kids. You know what I mean? So it's me towing the line between communication with ICE and making sure my clients are obeying the laws of the United States and the requirements, but also having my clients prepared for, whatever may come. They could be prepared for the worst. Like one of my clients a couple weeks ago, I prepared her for the worst, and guess what? I said, hey, we're not gonna take any action, just come back next year. Okay, great, bye. We left, and she was crying the whole time, but I was like, at least you were prepared, you know what I mean? So every attorney is different, every case is different, but that's kind of my approach with ICE. Certain people do, certain people don't. Yep.
Wait.
Sorry.
Is ICE real aggressive in this area?
Not in
I
this
mean,
area.
So they pretty much are administrative more than, you say
Yeah.
enforcing, okay.
Yeah, I would say that. There are certain cities where ICE is very aggressive, and this is not one of them. Wichita is very chill, and the only time that ICE is ever enforcing a removal order or someone who got arrested recently is because that was probably a very severe crime, and they are executing the enforcement or removal order to that one person. You guys probably hear on the news about raids, ICE going in and just detaining a bunch of people. That's not happening in Wichita. They're typically targeting one person, and because that one person probably did something to put themselves on the radar. Again, it's inevitable sometimes. Yeah.
So I know you're on the outside of ICE and engaging with them, but how much latitude do you see local offices having in how they practice this versus driven from the top down, you will all operate in this way? Or do you see a trend in that direction, or is it just still fairly flexible?
From what I've seen so far, from the day that President Trump was inaugurated, what I saw was people who have very severe federal or state crimes on their record, ICE is enforcing removal or removal operations on them. Someone who is simply here unlawfully or has a removal order but hasn't been convicted of any crime, they're usually having discretion and not enforcing removal on that person. That's just what I've seen, because literally the day after President Trump was inaugurated, ICE picked up one of my clients on the way to work because he had federal firearms charges, and they were just waiting. Like, they were waiting for the order to go get him. So it just depends on the case, depends on where you are. And that's just what I've seen in Wichita. Can't really speak for other cities. But I think we're very lucky to live in Wichita right now. Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to add, the person who asked the question about ICE agents in Wichita, when it comes to the bureaucracy side of things, you can actually see that reflected in the vehicles that show up around Wichita. So I know it can be confusing and I know it can be scary, because federal agents also use the same vehicles as ICE, with the small exception of one little label that's different on each vehicle. If you see a vehicle and aren't sure if it's ICE or not, Once we get the hotline set up, we would rather you give us a heads up than be wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So just to keep that in mind, if you see a federal vehicle in Wichita, there's just small things to look for, and you can find the differences online, and we're going to be trying to have that up on our link tree soon too, so.
One thing that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have a friend, like my daughter has a friend at work who is concerned, you know, about being deported. What can they do, basically?
So.
Broad question.
Yeah, so unfortunately, right now, the ICE hotline is being promoted, obviously for people to call in tips on people who may be here illegally or what have you. But I think the biggest thing that I would say to someone who's afraid right now is just you have to be prepared. You have to have someone who is very close to you, who has all of your information, your immigration history, your criminal history, your family members' names, ages, types of status, because when someone is detained, I, as an attorney, cannot reach out to them because I'm not their attorney yet, and I don't want to enter my appearance for someone who I might not be able to help. So I have to rely on their families to provide me the information that I need. I can assess the case and then figure out if I'm able to help that person. If I'm able to help that person and they're able to pay me because I am a private attorney, that's another way that families need to be prepared. They need to be able to have the money to pay an attorney or pay a bond if they're eligible for a bond if they're detained by ICE. So that preparedness is huge. And that's what I would say to that person is you got to have someone who's able to provide the information to me if something happens. And then once I'm able to enter my appearance, then I can reach out to them and talk to them. Yeah.
Let me,
Do you know if that person has kids?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just
Doesn't
gonna
think so.
say, there's also this resource as well to help with family planning when it comes to ICE.
God, my eyes. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on social media and stuff, but I would say I'm a part of the Kansas Coalition, Kansas Immigration Coalition, and we created the Kansas Immigration Coalition immediately after President Trump was elected, because we knew that immigration enforcement was going to be his priority. So we're like, okay, how can we prepare families? How can we provide resources to families? Because again, there's only so much that we can do at the end of the day. And it's kind of a very bleak outlook, but at the end of the day, I see every single day there are some things that are inevitable. Sometimes there is literally nothing that I can do. And that person is probably going to have to go back to their home country, simply because the way the immigration laws are created and the way they work right now. I would say as general members of the community, there's something really important that I would have you guys keep in mind, which is something very, very basic. And that is, if someone speaks another language and does not speak English, there's something inside of us that automatically thinks, oh, I don't wonder if they have status. And it's not racist. It's not, there's just something that maybe we automatically go to, and there's nothing wrong with it, saying, maybe this person doesn't have immigration status. And that most of the time, that's not true. And so I always educate the community on the types of status that there are for people. And so on one end of the spectrum, we have someone who entered the country illegally, right? So illegal entrants, they have absolutely no lawful status in the United States, but that doesn't mean that they can't eventually get status, okay? Again, everybody's case is different. It depends on the relationships you have in the United States. It depends on how long you've been here, your criminal record, your immigration history. So on the very far end of the spectrum is illegal or no status, okay? Then the next part of the spectrum is deferred action. So Esmeralda was talking about earlier, DACA. DACA is deferred action, and deferred action is not a lawful status. So someone who has DACA is technically not here lawfully, and that's not a bad word, it's not bad to say, it's just reality, right? So DACA is deferred action. Essentially, the government has said, hey, you're cool, You could stay here, we're not gonna enforce removal against you for the time that DACA's valid. So that's the fear right now, is DACA could go away at any point in time, and there will be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who will have no lawful status whatsoever. After deferred action, you have lawful status, but it's temporary. So people who come to the United States on tourist visas, or people who come to the US with student visas, something, or religious visas. There's all kinds of different visas that people can come to the US on, but they're temporary, and they're called non-immigrant visas. So that's another type of status. And mind you, until we get to US citizenship, which is all the way on this side, you don't have to speak English to get any of these visas or to be here permanently. You don't have to speak English at all. So that's why I like to do this, because if you hear someone not speaking English or something, you know, you automatically assume that they might not have status, which isn't true. So temporary visas, and then you have permanent visas, immigrant visas, where maybe you have a spouse who's not from here and you want them to come to the United States, or they're here unlawfully, but they're able to adjust their status to what's called a lawful permanent resident. Some people like to jump from no status, and they'll say, you know, why can't they just become US citizens? You can't even go to US citizenship unless you are a lawful permanent resident, which is also a green card, okay? And that's something that we all have probably heard, green card. You have to have a green card in order to become a US citizen, and that's called naturalization. If you can't get a green card, you're never going to become a US citizen. And there is a whole population of people in the United States who are never, ever, ever, ever going to get the opportunity to become a lawful permanent resident because of the way the laws are right now. There's policies that literally stop someone from becoming a green card holder. So that's why there's so many people here in the United States who come illegally or who overstay visas, who are never going to get to that step, and they're never going to get to the other step. Does that make sense? And I'm going to provide you an example right now of a normal, every single day situation that we see in our office, and it's going to blow your minds, okay? So I need like 5 or 6 volunteers to come up. Come on up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more. And then I might throw people out or in. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. Okay. I know, right? Okay, I'm gonna pick on you. What's your name? Kendra. Okay, Kendra is a US citizen. Kendra just turned 21. And let's see, mom and dad? Can I make you guys mom and dad? Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, so these are Kendra's parents, okay? Perfect. So mom and dad right here are from Mexico, okay? They both entered the country illegally way back in the day, but their pride and joy, Kendra, was born in the United States and is now about to turn 21, okay? So for people who aren't around the immigration community, is when a US citizen turns 21, that's the golden age, man. They are eligible to apply for their parents, okay? They're able to petition for their parents at the age of 21. But there's a problem because of the way the immigration laws are right now. The problem is that mom and dad both entered the country illegally, okay? So yes, their US citizen kid can apply for them, but they have to also apply for what's called a waiver or a perdón, okay? And that's a pardon for entering the country illegally, for acquiring the amount of unlawful presence that they have acquired in the United States. So, hey, Grandpa. Hey, Grandma. Okay, I need one more person, please. A man, preferably. Let's go. Okay, so you two are her parents. and then you two are gonna be his parents. So come on over by him. You two, Grandma, sorry, Grandma. Okay, so come over here. Okay, so the problem here is that in order to be eligible for a waiver, you have to have a spouse or a parent with status, okay? So grandma, grandpa are still living at the rancho in Mexico. They have no status whatsoever in the United States. So you guys can sit down. You guys can't be qualifying relatives. They're not eligible for a waiver that way. Thank you. Okay, parents out, no status. And then they look at each other, well, crap, you're my spouse. We both don't have status, okay? So they are not eligible for a waiver. What does that mean? That means there is no case. We have no case. Because they both entered illegally, they don't have a way to become lawful permanent residents because they're not eligible for the waiver. Almost every single day in our office, we have to turn these guys away and say, there's nothing we can do for you. Because if we were to have the US citizen kid apply for their parents, and they went to their home country for their interview, because that's where they have to do their final interview in front of the US consulate in Mexico, they would be stuck there. They wouldn't be able to come back because they weren't eligible for a waiver. They didn't have a waiver. Does that make sense? Do you understand how many people in the United States are in this situation? Probably millions. And this is why I do my talks, is because if we changed one little policy, we could have millions of people become lawful permanent residents. Because guess what? Mom and dad probably entered the country once, unlawfully, yes, that is a federal crime. But guess what? They probably have no criminal history. They probably have been paying taxes since the 90s and not receiving any benefits from it. They probably have bought a house. They probably have been working for the same company for 20 years. Are these not the people that we want to become lawful permanent residents? But the laws don't allow it. Yeah.
A couple questions. So if a child is born in the US, they're automatically going to be a citizen when they're 21?
Correct.
Is that correct? So
Yeah.
parents,
They're automatically a citizen at birth.
okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Additional rights at 21. Sorry, I didn't say
Yeah.
that correctly. How do the parents be able to work? Do they get a social security number?
guys
Do
can
they
sit
get
down.
a
So,
identification so they can actually work, buy a house, get a loan, et cetera, et cetera?
right, that's a very good question. Most of the time, people who enter the country unlawfully are working unlawfully. There's only certain situations where you're able to get a valid social security number. So the way that most people work here in the United States is they make up a social security number in their heads, and they use fake documents. It's just a reality of life. So until, oh yeah,
No, go ahead. Hang on, Eldon, no one can hear you if you don't speak into a mic.
But my understanding is then when it's time for retirement, they
correct.
receive no benefit.
No benefits whatsoever. Correct. There is something called an I-10. It's called an ITIN, Individual Taxpayer Number. The government created that number so that people who don't have valid social security numbers can pay their taxes.
Yes.
So they know that people are working in the US with no social security number, but you gotta still pay your taxes because they want your money.
Did the path to citizenship become much more difficult with this particular presidency?
Yes and no. A myth right now is that everything's going to SHIT and immigration world is on fire, right? However, we still have green cards coming in the mail every week. We still have clients who are becoming US citizens every week. There are still good things happening in the world. A typical case where a US citizen spouse applies for their foreign national spouse, pretty simple case happening. If they're eligible to have their appointment here in the US, it's taking about a year to get their green card. If they have to have their appointment outside the US, it's taking about 4 to 5 years, but that's simply because of the processing times There's so many people applying for stuff and not enough resources to handle the cases.
So I want to go back to what you say, because I think that you mentioned it's extremely important that people get prepared. But I would like to hear, for us to get an idea, when you say we also need money for bond, we need money for the attorney, and we need money to apply, to pay for the applications. So hypothetically, how much money? I am an undocumented immigrant, been working here for 20 years, but I entered the country illegally. If I'm gonna be prepared, how much money do I need to have?
Depending on the attorney, 10K to 20K.
Yes, I wanted you to hear that because it cost me about $30,000 to legalize my status. I entered the country illegally. I have 2 newborn sons, a son and a daughter. The process that I went through was for cancellation of deportation, which is a very difficult way to win a case, I've been told. Keep in mind that while all this I was working, I volunteered on many places since the day that I arrived. I worked, I never asked for any handouts, which I couldn't anyway because I wasn't documented. And so I had to borrow money from family, friends, and the bank in order to pay all these fees. And it was more because I got screwed up by an attorney. There are good attorneys and bad attorneys, and believe me, I had 2 bad ones until I got a good one. That's why it cost so much. 15 years of my life. To put this into context, my son, who has a PhD on biomedical engineer, and I were eligible to vote at the same time. So just that. And so in order for people to be ready, the 11 million or now 16 million of undocumented immigrants up there is going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible. I had the ITIN number, which means I pay my taxes from the very beginning that I started working, yet all those years that I worked without a Social Security number are not recorded on my Social Security.
Just clarification, I had heard that entering illegally was a misdemeanor.
Nope.
And you said it's a federal
It's a
crime.
federal
Did it
crime.
used to be a misdemeanor?
It may have before my time.
Okay.
Pretty young.
Okay.
Yes, it is a federal crime. The U.S. government, the U.S., USA, what are they? Not district attorneys, but the USA attorneys, they can charge someone in federal court under a federal statute for illegal entry. Yep. Mhm.
Sarah, would you repeat the question?
Oh, the question was, is it a misdemeanor to enter the U.S. illegally? No, I have clients who are detained. It's a criminal violation because they are legit detained and being charged in federal court for entering the country illegally. I can't remember the statute, but yeah. Yep. So I don't represent people in federal court. I represent people in immigration court, which is an administrative court, and that's in Kansas City. There is a U.S. federal court in Wichita that people can be charged in.
Quick question, how does asylum work? Because I was of the understanding that you can't file for asylum unless you are on U.S. soil.
Correct.
But if you can't get across the border in most cases
Right.
easily without coming illegally.
Right. So asylum is a type of immigration relief that you can only apply for in the United States. But if you've heard of refugee, they essentially have to prove that they are a refugee, but they're in the United States. So if you have suffered persecution in your home country, or you're afraid of future persecution in your home country, you can come to the United States and apply for asylum. There are people entering the United States illegally, which is outside of a port of entry. So there are multiple different ports of entry along the border, and then there's ports of entry all over the United States by airplane. So when people are coming to the United States, they can ask for asylum at a port of entry, or they can enter illegally and then ask for asylum once they're here. It's asylum, I'm sure you guys have heard it on the news maybe. It is not easy to win. There is much more that you have to prove than simply being harmed in your home country or you fear harm. You have to prove that you fall under certain grounds under the immigration laws. So you have to prove that the harm is or was connected to 5 different grounds, protected grounds, which is your race, your religion, your nationality, your membership in a particular social group, or your political opinion. Coming here because you're fleeing gang violence is not a winning case. Because guess what? Gang violence is happening all over the world. It's happening all over so-and-so's country. So those types of cases are not winners, but people are coming to the US to apply for asylum anyway, based on those types of cases. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do you have an update on the sensitive locations part of the law and how that's being enforced or not, particularly churches?
Like, say that again?
Sensitive locations. There was a change in how the Trump administration was interpreting.
Yeah.
And ICE.
So certain types of areas of immigration I'm not too familiar with, and that was not essentially sanctuary cities, but protected locations, yes. I'm assuming. Churches and schools, hospitals, and that's no longer the case, so essentially ICE can enter any facility that they want, and that's why the Kansas Immigration Coalition was so big on know your rights. If you own a business location or whatever, know what you can and can't do. Schools are educating themselves on, okay, what information am I allowed to give ICE agents? And I know WSU for sure has trained their staff on, they're actually not able to give out any private information about their students. So ICE could say, where's so-and-so, and you'd be like, who? You know, but I'm not too familiar with those types of rules just because I don't really practice in those areas, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to share a personal story. When we were living in Colombia, a neighbor of mine with a small child was trying to get to the US, and she did have family in Miami, and we were there 7 years, and when we left, she still had not been able to get what she needed. Mm-hmm. And I think it took her about 12 years to actually get to the US legally, yeah, by jumping through all the hoops that she needed to jump to.
Yep.
And all I could think of was, you know, if her thought was to get to the US to provide her son with a better life, by the time she got here, you know, he was 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And that certainly didn't help her in those days.
I think another misconception about immigration is why can't they just wait in line? Why can't they just come to the US lawfully? And there you have to understand that not everyone can apply for something. There's only certain lines that you can get in, and if you don't fall in the criteria for that line, you're not eligible to apply for anything. And so that's something, and if you are eligible to apply for something, let's say you have a US citizen sibling applying for a foreign national sibling and you're from Mexico, well, they're working on cases from 2001. So it's gonna be like 30 years before you can come to the US. And those change and they don't change. It could be stuck on 2001 for 5 more years. There's only a certain amount of visas that the US government gives out per year. And if there's too many people applying for these types of visas, it's gonna be a while. So if you want to come in the right way, it might not even be an option. And that's why you've probably heard on the news again, that President Trump has been saying, hey, leave the country now and come back the right way. And that's, fine, whatever, but you have to understand that if you do leave the country, there might not be a right way to come back. And guys, when I'm talking, I worked for the Department of Homeland Security, and a lot of people don't know that. I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I worked for DHS during the first Trump administration when I was in law school. I did an entire summer with the people who I go up against today. The prosecutors in immigration court, they're called the department, the DHS attorneys, that's who I worked for. And I've sat at that table, and I get it. I understand where the government's coming from, and I understand where the people are coming from. And you have to learn the basics of immigration before you start making your opinions, you know what I mean, about what's going on and why our country is in the state that it's in today. Because it's a constant back and forth between government values and humanitarian values, you know what I mean? So.
There was some discussion about costs, attorney's fees, bond, that sort of thing. Are you aware, or is anybody else here aware of organizations that provide funds
There are some.
for those?
Yeah, there are some organizations out there, but not very many. And I'll tell you, in Kansas, there's only one or two organizations, Catholic Charities, who do low-cost or pro bono services. That's it. There's an attorney at the Washburn School of Law that she came from New York. People, pro bono organizations are fighting for clients in New York, but here, nothing.
Our committee checked into that. I found a gentleman it's in a Presbyterian church in Kansas City. Jim Enns is his name, and visited with him. And they tried to start a fund at their church. And they raised money to provide bond money. And the first bond that they were supposed to pay was $15,000. So they pretty much gave up.
What's the smallest amount of bond? Hold on. They have to have a microphone, sorry. Yeah.
Martha had a question.
¿Es en español? ¿Está bien?
Oh, Lord, you're about to test me, girlfriend.
Amira, you can help us out if you need to.
All right.
Ok. Si es con asilo político, no sé, dijeron que tenía ya un costo hacer el trámite y también si no se pudo ir a las huellas, ¿en qué situaciones estamos en eso?
Did you hear what she said?
If it's for political asylum, and I couldn't go to get the fingerprints, so how much it is and in what position are we? ¿No fue a las huellas?
Es ella no, pero ella no habla nada.
Okay. So something about immigration is that you do have to go to get your fingerprints done with the US government when you're applying for things. And it is not true that if you simply go to your biometric appointment, you're going to get picked up by ICE. That is absolutely false. There are certain people who are here with removal orders that are unexecuted, deportation orders, that yes, you are at risk of being picked up at a federal facility because you have an outstanding removal order. But not everybody who goes to immigration is going to get picked up by ICE. We would be out of business if that happened. That does not happen, okay? But if you did miss your biometric appointment, that's what I'm for, and that's why I have a very good relationship with USCIS and ICE, is I just simply tell them, hey, can you please reschedule the appointment? And they'd be like, sure, no problem. But if you don't reschedule your appointment and you let it go, you could be deemed that you abandoned your case.
Ahí ella podría ayudar para que hagas una nueva cita para hacerte las huellas. Ella explicó que no es cierto que si vas a hacerte las huellas, inmigración te va a encerrar y deportar, a menos que ya tengas una previa orden de deportación. So, básicamente, ella como abogada puede ayudarte a pedir la cita otra vez y ya vas y te hacen las huellas, pero no debes de dejarlo pasar por mucho tiempo.
Por decir, el trámite, dijeron que ahora como cambiaron las leyes, ese trámite tenía un costo. Anteriormente era gratis, entonces...
Is it true that now this process has a cost, and how much is it?
Yes, so anybody who applied or was about to apply for asylum didn't have to pay anything to the US government, and now the US government is charging $100. Yeah, 100 per person, or per case.
Pues,
So I'm aware of our time here, Sarah, and we're going to have to come to a conclusion shortly.
Not at the fingerprint, no, you don't have to pay for fingerprints. Yeah.
Thank you. And if you need to continue your dialogue later, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be around here for another hour or two, right, Sarah?
I mean, football is on.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Football's waiting. The Chiefs don't play till Monday night.
It's been on since 11 o'clock this morning.
So we'll take maybe one more question, but I wanted to just briefly say a few things here. This gentleman wasn't properly introduced. This is Michael Mascorro with 2 R's, sorry, Mascorro. We didn't meet until, well, we met long time ago, but our ICT committee is going to be working with him. He is going to be working with ICT Alerta. Alerta is the Spanish word for alert, and that will be a rapid response team. And so we're working together with them to see what we might do here or have to do here. I also prepared a few documents that you can come up and get later if you wish. You can go to any church's website, any denomination, I should say's website, and they have immigration resources. It's amazing. We have millions of people on our side, so to speak. And so there's a bunch of resources here that you can get to. One thing that Esmeralda, I think, would have shared had she been here, she grew up Catholic, as she mentioned. And the Catholic bishops here in Sedgwick County, Sean McKnight, Carl Kemme, and Gerald Vinke, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing those names right, wrote an open letter on August the 14th. It is absolutely amazing what they're challenging the Catholic community to do to help with immigration, with this entire problem. And on the back is the KIC, Kansas Immigration Communities, kind of one page, what can you do as an individual or as a church? And then I have another one that's mostly a summary from our own Mennonite Church USA immigration statement updated in 2025, which is very interesting to look at as well. Amira, you wanted to add something?
Well, just really quick, even though that came out, that letter of support, there is still a lot of, almost most of the Catholic churches are being silent. And so I want to say, when I said Hope Mennonite is one of the churches that supports the most, or a very good church, what I mean is there is a lot more up there that are totally okay with what the administration is doing, and is due to misconception and misunderstanding, and people had believed the rhetoric, the hate rhetoric that is up there, and believe that all us immigrants are criminals, and we come here to get welfare and to get a driver's license and all those sort of things. So it is extremely important for us, all of us in this room, to be very knowledgeable and in a kind and loving way, be ready to talk to those people who are promoting this hate rhetoric, or who don't understand. This is the only way that we're going to be able to help a little bit, and notice that I said lovely and kindly, because it is time for us to stop fighting and us versus them, and just use the love language to kindly enlighten them or communicate what the situation with immigration and anything else that is happening in this country is.
Was there? I mean, I have a, conclusion, but do you guys have any other questions?
Any final question for Sarah?
I mean, I could be here all day talking about immigration, but again, football is on.
We will. The ICT, where we're at with this right now is Vision Council has a draft, actually 2 drafts of a proposal for an emergency plan here at church. And they will be discussing that in the coming months, and perhaps we'll have something for our annual meeting that we can then present as to what we might adopt here at Hope Mennonite. In the case that ICE would come, but also in the case of any other emergency, we're in a situation in Wichita where, as Amita is saying, we've got crazy people that would come in perhaps to a choir practice or whatever and say, we hear that you are harboring fugitives at your church and whatever. And we need to be ready. We need to be ready and as you said, respond in a civil manner.
Yeah. I would just say it's very important to understand that, yes, the president is enforcing the immigration laws at the highest level that it's ever been enforced. That's his job. That is the job of the federal government, to enforce immigration laws. The people who really need to step up and do something is Congress. Because guess what? This is going to keep happening every 4 years until laws change. We can complain all we want, but guess what? The laws are the way they are. Policies are the way they are. And so unless Congress gets off their butts and does some sort of immigration reform, and it doesn't have to be amnesty, you don't have to go that far. As I said, there's just little things and little policies that if they were changed, people would have a pathway to apply for a green card the right way. But the immigration laws are what are holding up the right way. Does that make sense? So the people who really need to be accountable for this is Congress. The president's doing what he wants to do. That's his job. Congress needs to step up and actually do something if we want to see change, but because if we don't, this is going to keep happening. Okay? So that's what I will leave you with.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for being with us today.
If you know any Congress members, call me.